His voice came through the conference room speaker like gravel scraping concrete. We're promoting Colton to Director of Operations. Paige, you'll handle his transition starting Monday. My coffee cup stopped halfway to my lips. I set it down slowly, keeping my face blank. Across the table, Colton Sterling leaned back in his leather chair, arms crossed, that trademark smirk plastered across his face. 26 years old. Fresh MBA from a school his uncle donated to. Zero operational experience. And the CEO's nephew. He didn't even try to hide his satisfaction. His eyes swept the room like a king surveying his new kingdom. When they landed on me, he had the audacity to wink. I smiled back. Warm. Professional. Empty. Inside, something cold and sharp clicked into place. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to cry in the bathroom. I wasn't going to update my resume and quietly disappear. I was going to do something far more devastating. I was going to let him destroy everything I built, document every single failure, and watch this company beg me to save them. On my terms, at my price. Any questions? Mitchell Sterling asked, his eyes not quite meeting mine. None at all, I said smoothly. I'm happy to support the transition. The lie tasted like copper on my tongue. My name is Paige Hartley. I'm 35 years old. For 8 years, I've been the backbone of Sterling Tech's operations department. Not the face of it. Not the one getting promotions and praise. The backbone. The person who actually made things work while others took credit. I took a chaotic mess of systems held together with duct tape and prayer and turned it into a revenue-generating machine worth $14 million annually. $14 million. I have the spreadsheets to prove it. I streamlined vendor contracts that saved the company $2 million in the first year alone. I built compliance protocols from scratch that passed every audit with perfect scores. I created a project management system that reduced delays by 47%. I mentored 12 junior employees who went on to lead their own teams across the company. I never missed a deadline, never cut corners, never played office politics, or stabbed anyone in the back to climb the ladder. And now I was being shoved aside for nepotism wrapped in an expensive suit and too much hair gel. Mitchell Sterling founded this software company 20 years ago in his garage. It grew fast, went public, made him wealthy beyond imagination. But lately, he'd been making decisions based on family loyalty instead of competence. His brother-in-law ran marketing despite having zero marketing experience. His college roommate was CFO before Patricia replaced him. This was just the latest example. The most insulting one. I wasn't naive. I knew how corporate America worked. But knowing didn't make it hurt less. It just made me angrier. Still, I wouldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing me break. Monday morning arrived with artificial sunshine streaming through my office window and the smell of Colton's expensive cologne announcing his arrival before he even appeared in my doorway. He showed up at 8 sharp, artisan coffee in hand, acting like we were old friends about to embark on some exciting adventure together. So, walk me through everything, he said, dropping into my guest chair like he owned it. Which, technically, he did now. I pulled up the operations dashboard on my second monitor. This tracks real-time project status across all departments. Green means on schedule, yellow means potential delays, red means immediate attention needed. We review it every morning at 9. He nodded, eyes glazing over after 30 seconds. I could see his attention drifting to his phone. I continued anyway, my voice deliberately steady. These are our vendor management protocols. Every contract goes through a 3-stage approval process to ensure compliance and cost efficiency. First stage is operational review. Second is legal verification. Third is financial approval. Seems really complicated, he interrupted, not looking up from his phone. Can't we just simplify this whole thing? We could, I said evenly. But that 3-stage process is how we maintain our 98% audit rating and keep vendor costs 23% below industry average. He waved his hand dismissively, like swatting away a fly. We'll revisit that later. I'm here to modernize things, you know? Break down these old school barriers. I made a note in my personal documentation file. Time-stamped. Dated. First red flag. Dismissing established protocols without understanding their purpose or the consequences of removing them. This was going to be easier than I thought. By Wednesday of week 1, Colton had already made his first major mistake. He approved a vendor contract without running it through the compliance check I'd spent 2 years perfecting. The vendor was offering network infrastructure services at rates 20% below market value. It looked attractive on the surface, like finding designer shoes at a thrift store. But 5 minutes of due diligence would have revealed they had failed 2 major client audits in the past 18 months and had 3 pending lawsuits for data breaches. I said absolutely nothing. Instead, I forwarded the contract approval to our compliance team with a simple note, per Colton Sterling's directive, moving forward as authorized. Then I copied myself on the email chain and saved everything in my growing folder labeled Evidence, System Failures. That afternoon, Colton called a department meeting. Mandatory attendance. He stood at the front of the conference room, projector displaying a slide deck he clearly hadn't created himself. Too professional. Too coherent. I want to talk about innovation, he announced, clicking to a slide with the word innovation in giant letters. We need to move faster, think bigger, break some rules. The old way of doing things is holding us back. I watched faces around the table. Confusion from the senior team members. Concern from the managers who actually understood operations. Nervous excitement from the junior employees who didn't know better yet. Nobody knew what he actually meant by any of it. Neither did he. But I smiled and nodded like it all made perfect sense. HR was supposed to be a safety net. That's what they tell you during orientation, during those mandatory training sessions about workplace culture and employee rights. We're here to support you. We advocate for fair treatment. I scheduled a meeting with Alicia Brennan, our Director of Human Resources. I'd known her for 6 years. We'd served on the diversity committee together. We'd had lunch twice a month for 3 years. I thought we were friends. I was wrong about a lot of things back then. I laid it out clearly, calmly, with documentation. I was effectively demoted without cause, without review, without any performance discussion. Colton Sterling has 0 operational experience, yet he's now my direct supervisor. This is textbook nepotism, and it violates our own merit-based promotion policy that's literally in the employee handbook. Alicia's expression shifted from sympathetic to carefully neutral, like a mask sliding into place. Paige, I understand your frustration. I really do. But executive decisions about organizational structure fall outside HR's purview. That's a business decision. Even when they violate our own written policies. She glanced at her computer screen, then back at me, and I saw it. The decision was already made. She wasn't here to help me. She was here to manage me. Sometimes we need to show flexibility during transitions. This could be a great opportunity for you to demonstrate leadership in a mentorship capacity. Think of it as expanding your skill set. Corporate speak for, shut up and deal with it. I see, I said quietly, gathering my folder. Thank you for your time. That meeting taught me something valuable. Something that would change everything. I was completely alone in this fight. HR wasn't neutral. Management wasn't fair. The system wasn't designed to protect people like me. So I stopped fighting fair. I stopped trusting the system to fix itself. And I started building my exit strategy. I started attending meetings differently. Before, I was the person who spoke up first, offered solutions, caught problems before they escalated into disasters. I was the reliable one, the one everyone looked to when things went wrong. Now, I sat quietly in the back, took meticulous notes, and watched. Just watched. Colton thrived in the silence I created. He filled every void with his voice, his ideas, his confident ignorance. He spoke in buzzwords and empty phrases that sounded impressive to people who didn't know better. I think we should consolidate our vendor relationships, he announced in one executive meeting, like he'd just discovered fire. Too many moving parts. We need to streamline. I knew that consolidation would eliminate our backup options and create single points of failure. I knew we'd maintain multiple vendors specifically to avoid that exact risk. I knew this would cost the company hundreds of thousands when something inevitably went wrong. I said nothing. Mitchell Sterling nodded approvingly from the head of the table. Efficient thinking, Colton. That's exactly the kind of fresh perspective we need. Our CFO, Robert Mendez, frowned but didn't argue. He'd learned, like everyone else, That challenging as Sterling was career suicide. After the meeting, Robert pulled me aside in the hallway. That consolidation idea is going to cause major problems down the line. Probably, I agreed. You didn't say anything. I'm just here to support Colton's vision now. That's what Mitchell wants. Robert studied my face for a long moment. You're up to something. I smiled. I'm being a team player. He didn't look convinced. Smart man. But he didn't push it. 3 weeks into Colton's reign, the cracks started showing. Small things at first, barely noticeable unless you knew what to look for. Missed emails. Confused team members asking for clarification on conflicting directives. Deadlines that suddenly became flexible without anyone actually approving the changes. Our project management system, which I'd spent 18 months building and refining into something actually useful, started showing yellow and red flags across multiple initiatives. Colton called me into his office. The one that used to be mine before they reorganized. What's going on with the dashboard? He asked, gesturing at his screen. Lots of red lately. Teams are adjusting to the new leadership approach, I said neutrally, keeping my face blank. What does that mean? You've implemented several process changes over the past 3 weeks. People are still adapting to the new workflow. He leaned back in his chair, frowning. I haven't changed that much. I pulled up my notes on my tablet. I had everything documented. Everything. You've eliminated the 3-stage vendor approval process, reduced the frequency of team check-ins from weekly to monthly, consolidated our vendor relationships from 12 to 4, and removed the mandatory compliance reviews for contracts under $50,000. Each change has downstream effects on team performance and project timelines. His frown deepened. You think this is my fault? I think every change has consequences. Some intended, some not. Well, fix it, he said dismissively, turning back to his computer. That's what you're here for. I nodded and left. I didn't fix anything. Instead, I documented our entire conversation, time-stamped it, and added it to my growing file. The file was getting thick. The first major failure happened in week 5. A compliance audit routine annual review revealed that the vendor Colton had approved without proper due diligence had failed to implement required security protocols for handling client data. The auditor flagged it as a critical violation. Potential fine, $250,000. Potential loss of 2 major clients if word got out about the security gap. Emergency meeting. Conference room packed with every executive and department head. Mitchell Sterling's face was red, a vein throbbing in his temple. How did this happen? He demanded, voice tight with controlled fury. Colton shifted in his seat, suddenly very interested in his notepad. There was a miscommunication in the approval process. It's being handled. I kept my face perfectly neutral, hands folded in my lap. There was no miscommunication. He'd simply ignored the process entirely because it was too complicated. Mitchell's eyes found me across the table. Paige, you've been overseeing the transition and training Colton. Where was the breakdown? Perfect opportunity. I could expose Colton right now. Lay out exactly what happened. Destroy him in front of everyone. Instead, I said calmly, the approval went through Colton's office on March 15th. I flagged it for compliance review via email that same day, but the timeline was accelerated per Colton's directive to move faster on vendor decisions. Technically true. Also completely useless information that protected no one and blamed no one explicitly. Mitchell looked at Colton. Fix this. Now. I don't care what it costs. After the meeting, Colton cornered me in the hallway. You threw me under the bus in there. I stated facts that are documented in email records. You could have covered for me. I met his eyes. I don't cover for people who don't follow established procedures. Those procedures exist for reasons exactly like this. His jaw tightened, face reddening. But he couldn't argue because we both knew he was completely in the wrong. Checkmate. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with a glass of wine and typed out my resignation letter. 2 paragraphs. Professional. Emotionless. The kind of letter that gives nothing away. I saved it in a folder labeled Exit Strategy, but didn't send it. Not yet. Timing was everything. I needed them to understand exactly how much they needed me. And they wouldn't understand that until everything fell apart. Until the house of cards Colton was building collapsed completely. I was playing a long game. Patience was my weapon. Documentation was my ammunition. I made myself tea and reviewed my documentation folder. 53 separate incidents over 6 weeks. Each one time-stamped, cross-referenced, backed up in 3 separate locations, including a personal encrypted cloud drive. I wasn't building a case for HR anymore. HR had failed me. They'd chosen the company over fairness. I was building leverage. The company was bleeding slowly from self-inflicted wounds. Soon they'd realize they were bleeding. Then they'd panic. Then they'd scramble for solutions. Then they'd look for someone to save them. I'd be ready, but I'd name my price, and it would be high. The email appeared in the company-wide Slack channel at 2 in the morning on a Thursday. Someone had leaked internal messages from Colton to his college buddies. Honestly, don't know why everyone worships Paige. She's basically a corporate hall monitor with a clipboard. Zero vision, zero creativity. Another message. My uncle wants me to learn from her, but she just makes everything complicated for no reason. I'm here to modernize this place and drag them into the 21st century. A third message, the worst one. She's threatened by me, obviously. Probably realizes she's replaceable. The fallout was immediate and spectacular. By 8 a.m. when people started logging in, half the company had seen it. The messages had been screenshot and forwarded through every department. IT was scrambling to identify the leak source, running security protocols and reviewing access logs. I was never even questioned because I'd been smart. I'd been very, very smart. I'd used a VPN, a burner email account created on public Wi-Fi at a coffee shop 3 miles from my house, and routed everything through offshore servers. Skills I'd learned from our cybersecurity team during a training session 2 years ago that I'd paid attention to while everyone else was checking their phones. The leak wasn't about revenge. Not really. It was about showing everyone who Colton really was. What he really thought of the people around him. How little respect he had for anyone who wasn't in his social circle. Perception matters in corporate politics. I just poisoned his. Thoroughly. 2 major clients dropped their contracts in week 8. Both cited declining service quality and communication breakdowns with account management. I knew exactly why. Colton had reassigned their dedicated account managers to different projects without informing the clients first. Then he personally missed 3 consecutive quarterly check-in calls with each client because they weren't high priority in his estimation. Basic relationship management. Client relations 101. He'd failed spectacularly at the most fundamental level. Emergency all-hands meeting. Mitchell looked exhausted. 10 years older than he had 2 months ago. We're implementing immediate corrective measures, he announced to the assembled company. Colton will be focusing exclusively on internal operations optimization while we rebuild client relationships through dedicated account management. Translation. Colton was being quietly demoted without anyone actually saying those words out loud. After the meeting, Mitchell approached me privately in the hallway. I need you to take point on client recovery. Whatever it takes. I'm happy to help, I said carefully. But I'll need direct authority over account management and the ability to override any operational decisions that might affect client relationships. He hesitated. Giving me that authority would undercut Colton completely. Would make the family politics awkward. Fine, he said finally, exhaustion winning over pride. I just reclaimed half my power. Without asking for my old title back. Without making demands. Just by being the only person who could fix the mess. A message appeared in my LinkedIn inbox on a Friday afternoon. Vanessa Chun, CEO of TechBridge Solutions, a Sterling Tech competitor. We'd worked together on a cross-company industry initiative 3 years ago. She was sharp, fair, and ran her company based on merit instead of family connections. Heard rumors about organizational changes at Sterling Tech. If you're ever looking for a new opportunity, we'd love to talk. We value operational excellence here. I thanked her professionally and saved the conversation. Then I added the screenshot to my leverage folder. The message wasn't just flattering. It was proof. Proof that I had market value. Proof that other companies wanted what Sterling Tech was throwing away. Proof that I wasn't trapped. I wasn't going to take Vanessa's offer. Not yet anyway. But knowing I could walk away anytime, Knowing I had options gave me power. Power to negotiate. Power to wait. Power to dictate terms when the time came. I was no longer an employee hoping for fair treatment. I was a resource they couldn't afford to lose. The balance had shifted. Week 10 brought a surprise. Mitchell called me into his office with what he clearly thought was good news, a peace offering. "We're creating a new position," he said, gesturing for me to sit. "Strategic Operations Advisor. It would be a lateral move technically, but you'd have visibility across all departments and direct access to executive meetings." I let him finish his entire pitch. Lateral move meant no raise. Advisor meant no real authority, just influence. Visibility meant they wanted me to identify and fix problems without giving me the power to prevent them in the first place. "That sounds interesting," I said with a practiced smile that didn't reach my eyes. "Can you send me the official job description and compensation structure? I'd like to review the details. We're still finalizing the specifics." "Of course. I'll wait for the formal documentation before making any decision." He looked relieved, clearly thinking I was agreeing. I was actually declining without saying no. The oldest negotiation trick in the book. Never say no directly. Just add conditions that won't be met. I left his office and immediately documented the entire conversation. Date, time, what was offered, what wasn't, exact phrases used. They were trying to placate me with a title that meant nothing and responsibilities without corresponding authority or compensation. I wasn't interested in titles anymore. I was interested in money and control. Real power, not the appearance of it. The new CFO arrived in week 12 like a hurricane making landfall. Her name was Patricia Okonkwo. She'd spent 15 years at Fortune 500 companies, had an MBA from Stanford, and had a reputation for cutting through corporate nonsense like a hot knife through butter. Her first budget review meeting was absolutely brutal to watch. "Walk me through this variance," she said, pointing to a line item on the projected screen showing a 300% increase in vendor costs quarter over quarter. Colton fumbled through an explanation about strategic partnerships and long-term value relationships and investment in future growth. Patricia's expression didn't change. Completely neutral. "This vendor failed 2 separate audits last year for security compliance. Why are we using them at triple our previous vendor cost?" Silence. Heavy and uncomfortable. Her eyes found me across the conference table. "Paige, you built the vendor management system originally. What's your professional assessment of this situation?" Perfect question. Perfectly timed. I could torpedo Colton right now with one honest sentence. Instead, I said carefully, the approval process for this vendor was modified from our standard protocol. I flagged concerns about their audit history at the time of initial review, but the final decision was made above my authorization level. Patricia made a note on her tablet, face unreadable. She wasn't stupid. She knew exactly what I was saying without me saying it explicitly. She was going to be very useful. I could work with her. Week 14 brought an unexpected one-on-one meeting with Colton. His office. Door closed. His expression was harder than usual. Jaw set. "We need to talk about your attitude," he said before I even sat down fully. I folded my hands in my lap. Picture of calm professionalism. "I'm listening. You're not being a team player. People have noticed. People have mentioned it to me. Can you give me specific examples of behavior you find problematic?" He shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "You're not collaborative anymore. You don't volunteer ideas in meetings. You're just doing the bare minimum. I'm fulfilling my job responsibilities as defined in my current role." "That's exactly what I mean." His voice rose slightly. "You used to go above and beyond. You used to care. I used to have a different role with different expectations and different compensation." His face reddened. "I want a written improvement plan from you by end of week. Specific steps for how you're going to improve your attitude and engagement." I met his eyes calmly. "I'd like that request in writing, please, through official HR channels. I want to make sure I understand the specific areas where you believe improvement is needed, with concrete examples of deficient performance." He stared at me. We both knew exactly what I'd just done. If he put it in writing, HR would see it. They'd be required to ask questions. They'd review my actual performance history. They'd find nothing but perfect reviews and exceeded targets. Never mind, he muttered. Just try harder to be a team player. Checkmate again. The second major failure happened in week 16, and this one was entirely my doing. I'd quietly removed myself from the risk management reporting system 3 weeks earlier. Just stopped submitting the weekly compliance updates that kept us ahead of regulatory requirements and filing deadlines. Nobody noticed for 3 weeks. Then we missed a mandatory federal filing deadline for financial reporting. The penalty was automatic, non-negotiable, $225,000. Mitchell called an emergency executive meeting for 7 a.m. on a Monday. Everyone looked panicked and sleep-deprived. How did this happen? His voice was dangerously quiet. Colton looked at the compliance team. The compliance team looked at legal. Legal looked at me. Risk management reporting has always been handled by operations, the compliance director said carefully. It's not within our departmental scope per the organizational charter. Paige. Mitchell's voice was tight with barely controlled anger. I'm no longer responsible for risk management reporting under the current organizational structure. That responsibility shifted to the director of operations role when Colton assumed that position. It's outlined in the transition documentation from week 1, which was technically true. Colton had just never bothered to read the transition documentation, had never asked what risk management reporting actually involved, had never understood what that responsibility actually meant. The room was completely silent. Fix this, Mitchell said quietly, dangerously. Both of you. I don't care how. I nodded, but I didn't fix anything. I just documented the meeting. The call came on a Tuesday afternoon in week 17. Mitchell Sterling's personal cell phone. I stared at the screen for 3 rings before answering. Paige, I need your help. His voice sounded tired, defeated, desperate. I'm listening. The board is asking serious questions about operational efficiency. Clients are leaving. We've had 3 major compliance failures in 2 months, costing us over $500,000 in fines. Our project completion rate is down 30%. I need someone who can stabilize things before this gets worse. You have a director of operations. Long silence. Then, quietly, I need you. I let the silence stretch out. 10 seconds. 20. Finally, I said, I'm open to consulting. Consulting? Yes. My market rate for consulting is $375 per hour. 90-day minimum retainer, paid up front in full. I'll need full operational authority during that period, with all major decisions routed through me for final approval. Paige, that's non-negotiable, I interrupted, voice calm and professional. Those are my terms. Another long silence. I could hear him breathing. Let me talk to the board. Take your time. But my rate increases to $425 per hour if we don't have a signed agreement by end of business Friday. I hung up. My hands were shaking. My heart was pounding. But I'd done it. I named my price, and it was exactly what I was worth. The contract arrived Thursday evening at 6 p.m. 90-day consulting agreement. $375 per hour. Estimated 40 hours per week for 12 weeks minimum. Full operational authority over all department decisions. They'd calculated it out. $162,000 for 3 months of work. More than I'd made in 2 full years as a salaried employee. I read every single word twice. Made 3 minor revisions to clarify authority boundaries. Sent it back with my notes. By Friday morning at 9 a.m., it was signed by Mitchell and countersigned by Patricia. Monday, I walked into Sterling Tech with a different badge. Not employee, consultant. The distinction mattered more than anyone realized. Employees could be pushed around, manipulated, taken for granted. Consultants had contracts. Consultants had terms. Consultants could walk away. My first act was requesting access to all operational systems with full administrative rights. Complete data access across all departments. My second act was calling a mandatory department meeting. I'm here to rebuild what's broken, I told the assembled team, voice clear and authoritative. For the next 90 days, everyone will do exactly what I say, exactly how I say it, until the ship is stable again. No debates, no questions, no exceptions. Clear. Nobody had questions. Colton sat in the back row, face carefully blank. I didn't care what he thought anymore. He was irrelevant now. I spent the entire first week auditing everything. Every process. Every decision. Every single change Colton had made over the past 4 months. The damage was significantly worse than even I had expected. He'd eliminated safety protocols that protected our data integrity. He'd consolidated vendors in ways that created single points of failure across critical systems. He'd ignored 3 separate written warnings from our legal team about contract compliance issues. He'd cut the operational budget by 20% without understanding what that money actually funded. And he blamed everyone except himself when things went wrong. I compiled everything into a 17-page report. Charts showing performance decline. Graphs demonstrating cost increases. Direct quotes from emails and meeting transcripts. A complete, documented autopsy of organizational failure. Patricia requested a copy for the board. They need to see this before the quarterly meeting. Feel free to share it, I replied. Everything in there is documented fact with supporting evidence. She smiled. Not a warm smile. A sharp smile. This is absolutely damning. That's not my concern. I'm just here to fix broken systems. But we both knew what that report would do to Colton's future at the company. We both knew it was career-ending. Week 3 of my consulting contract, Colton disappeared from his office. Just gone one day. His nameplate removed from the door. Rumors spread through the company like wildfire. Some people said he'd been fired. Others said he quit. The truth, as usual, was somewhere in between. He'd been reassigned to a special projects team. Corporate speak for, we're shoving you in a corner where you can't cause more damage, but we can't actually fire you because family politics. No public firing. The Sterling family couldn't handle that embarrassment, that admission of failure. But his director title was gone. His operational authority was gone. His office was now occupied by someone actually competent. I saw him once in the hallway during week 4. He looked smaller somehow, diminished, like someone had let the air out of him. He didn't meet my eyes. I felt nothing. No satisfaction. No vindication. No triumph. Just cold acknowledgement that consequences had finally, inevitably arrived. I kept walking without breaking stride. Mitchell took me to lunch during week 6 of my contract. Expensive steakhouse downtown with white tablecloths and wine lists thicker than most books. He was trying very hard to be personable, charming, apologetic. I owe you a serious apology, he said after we ordered. I made a terrible mistake. I let family loyalty cloud my business judgment. Okay, I said simply, taking a sip of water. You've always been integral to this company's success. Essential, really. I should have recognized that sooner. Should have protected you better. Yes, you should have. He shifted uncomfortably, clearly expecting me to make this easier for him. I'd like to discuss bringing you back full time. Better title than before. Director of Strategic Operations. Significant raise, 40% increase. Equity options. Full benefits package. I'm not interested. His face fell. Why not? That's a generous offer. Because you taught me something valuable. You showed me that loyalty means nothing in corporate America. That competence gets rewarded with more work while incompetence gets promoted because of last names. That fairness is a myth we tell ourselves. You taught me to value myself correctly. I'm trying to make it right. No, you're trying to make it convenient. There's a fundamental difference. I finished my steak in silence while he processed that reality. The check came. He paid. We never had lunch again. Week 12 arrived faster than expected. My contract was ending. The operations department was stable again, running smoothly like it had before Colton touched it. I'd rebuilt the systems, retrained the entire team, implemented new safeguards, and created ironclad documentation that even someone completely incompetent couldn't destroy. My final deliverable was a 90-page operational manual. Every process documented, every protocol explained, every decision tree mapped, every contingency planned. Foolproof. I also built in a critical safeguard that nobody knew about. The systems now required biometric authentication for any major changes to core protocols. My biometric authentication. I was the only person who could modify the fundamental architecture. On my last day, I handed the manual to Patricia in a leather binder. Everything you need is documented here. Will you stay on for ongoing support? Remote consulting basis. My rate for ongoing support contracts is $500 per hour with a 20-hour monthly minimum. She whistled low. That's extremely steep. That's market value for specialized expertise. She smiled. I'll present it to the board next week. I packed my personal items into a single box and walked out of Sterling Tech for the last time as a consultant. I felt lighter than I had in years. Free. 6 months later, my phone rang. Unknown number with a local area code. I answered anyway. Paige. It's Mitchell Sterling. I stayed silent, waiting. We're having some operational challenges again. Patricia said you built some authentication requirements into the core systems that are blocking necessary updates. We need your help to modify those protocols. I see. Would you be open to another consulting contract? Short term, just to handle these technical issues. I thought about it for exactly 3 seconds. No. What would it take to change your mind? Name your price. There's nothing you could offer that would interest me at this point. Long silence. Then, quietly, I understand. I hung up without saying goodbye. It felt better than any revenge I could have carefully planned. Better than anger. Better than vindication. It felt like freedom. I used my consulting fees to start my own firm. Hartley Operations Consulting, specialized in corporate systems optimization, crisis management, and organizational efficiency. My first client was TechBridge Solutions. Vanessa Chin remembered me, remembered my work, and trusted my expertise. My second client was one of Sterling Tech's former competitors who'd heard about the dramatic turnaround I'd engineered in 90 days. Word spread fast in the industry. Within 8 months, I had 6 corporate clients and a team of 3 junior consultants learning from me. Within a year, I had 12 clients and had turned away 4 others because I was selective about who I worked with. My revenue in year 1 exceeded what I'd made in 3 years at Sterling Tech. I worked from home 3 days a week, set my own hours, chose my own clients, decided my own worth, built something that belonged entirely to me. And nobody could ever take that away. Nobody could ever make me feel small again. I don't hate Mitchell Sterling. I don't even think about him most days anymore. What he did to me, what he allowed to happen, forced me to bet on myself, to recognize my own value, to stop waiting for institutions to treat me fairly and start demanding fair treatment as a baseline requirement. If he promoted me instead of Colton, I'd probably still be there. Loyal, hardworking, underpaid, building someone else's empire while my own potential gathered dust in a corner office. His nepotism destroyed his system, but it built mine. I learned that corporate loyalty is a lie sold to keep talented people compliant and underpaid. That merit matters less than relationships and family connections. That fairness is a fantasy designed to keep us from demanding what we're actually worth. But I also learned that I'm not powerless. That documentation is ammunition. That patience is strategy. That knowing your worth and demanding it isn't arrogance or entitlement, it's survival. Sterling Tech still exists. It's smaller now, less profitable, less respected in the industry. They've had 3 directors of operations since I left.